Hey guys, Tarekis here. Finally ready to share my current PoE 2 Flicker Invoker build. I think I currently have a good mix of defenses, offenses, and a pretty tame budget to go with it, and I wanted to share that with you guys. My current character has about 200 Exalted invested, and for that it's pretty strong, I think. I'm gonna give you guys a quick outline of what will be in this video, and then we'll dive right into it. First, we're going to do a quick breach showcase. High density is where the build works the best. Some general mapping stuff is already running in the background, as you can see. And then we're going to do a quick build for the veterans among you that just need the bare minimum info, followed by an explanation of all gearing, tree, and skill choices in the build if you want more information on decision making and mechanics. Then, if you're interested in variant versions of Flicker Invoker, I'll do a deep dive into those I cooked up and dismissed for now. They might become more relevant after balance patches and whatnot. And if you're interested in some Theorycrafting, scaling stuff, etc., the ending part is for you. Alright, let's open that breach. Alright, we're going to go over the build guide now, quick version first and then additional info later on top. I'll have a guide in the description that you can reference if you want to come back to it later. Detailed info like skill links, etc. will be regularly updated on the guide. I'm running the low sockets in game, so I couldn't even show you what I have in mind for all the links, so we're going to do that on the guide. For skills, I'm just going to go over everything real quick. No big explanation. If you just want to copy it one by one, flickerstrike, virtual charge, close combat, culmination. Quality here is important. You will want that at max quality. Ice strike quality works, not important though. Just gives more attack speed. Use glaciation, martial tempo, and practice combo on this one. Tempest spell, you can corrupt this to get 4 sockets. You will want overabundance, that's important. Heavy swing, martial, primal armament, and rage forged. And charge staff to get base damage. Quality is very luxurious here, very nice. Probably want to get it if you have spare ones. Increased skill effect duration is just very nice. You don't need to refresh as often. Added with persistence for even more skill effect duration, conduction, and coursing current for area shock, which will be good with some other supports. Pretty good. For auras, we're going to do most important first. They're not in order on my character, so we're going to go Herald of Ice. That is the most important one, arguably, because that enables us with the physical damage one that we're going to talk about later to do elemental damage. You will want magnified effect, cold infusion, very probably. Actually, more important is shock siphon and innervate. So let me just reorder those. Just get shock siphon and innervate. These are the ones I mentioned before. You can consume shocks, or you can kill things that were shocked to gain 35 as extra lightning and regain energy shield. Also, Comet Frenzy, very important as well. You gain quality here as well. I don't currently have the quality currency. You want it at this at 20 quality, because this is going to give 60% currently. There's 10% here, 50% here to gain additional charge. Very important. And then also get Grim Feast. Grim Feast just for energy shield recovery, clarity, precision on here. Doesn't matter where it is, because we have the additional spirit I even have more spirit left. I could go another 10, but none of those that exist do anything really for me. The remaining ones you will only be able to get once you get the Ascendancy, but we're going to go over them as well because they're very strong. Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer are defensive only. Ghost Dance with just fast forward. Wind Dancer, these are not necessary, but Pin, Lockdown, and Bludgeon are nice at a touch. If you get hit, you just throw enemies in your range out. Probably will not save your ass a lot, but maybe it does sometimes. And Herald of Thunder for additional damage, added with Overcharge for high shock values on rares in maps, with Lightning Infusion and Lightning Mastery, but they're not really needed, honestly. That's essentially all your skills. Use Flickerstrike to just move around. Use Ice Strike if you don't have the power charges to use Flicker Strike. That is also kind of the baby Flicker Strike. It both generates your power charges and it just kind of dashes around. Tempest Spell for bosses or rare mobs because this is amazing single target. And Charge Staff, just half is up at all times with your maximum amount. If you have all the power charge nodes, that's 7. So I have 7 power charge 7 charge staff stacks up all the time. That's kind of the goal there. Yeah, that's it for all your skills already. For gear, you will want to start with a staff that is going to be a physical damage staff. It's pretty counterintuitive if you look at Flicker, because Flicker does not have a convert to elemental line, and we will need elemental damage. Ice Strike, for example, has it. That's why we're using Herald of Ice to just kind of squeeze out all the elemental damage that we can use with the penetration. Then the rest of your gear is essentially just energy shield, energy shield, energy shield, and evasion energy shield on your jacket, body armor. And for suffixes, really, it's mostly just resistances and whatever you can get on the specific slot. For prefixes, for example, movement speed is really nice. I only have 20%. You really need it in PoE 2. In PoE 1, you can ignore it, but that's another thing. No density in PoE 2, blah, blah, blah. You just get the highest thing you can get. And on gloves and on the rings, you will want to have some added damage to attacks. You can get any free. You want lightning, cold, and fire, even physical, because physical is converted, like with the staff. And that's just a really huge additional damage bump you will want to get. It's not as strong as other uniques like Hand of Wisdom and Action, but pretty damn good. If you get all 3 types, cold, lightning, and fire, that enables you to get a neat cluster. Otherwise, if you don't do fire damage, you have to do some janky stuff. We're not going to go in there. Just gather any of those. For your ring, your second ring, you will want Paul Circalen, or whatever that is pronounced. For the last line here, enemies' shield can be shattered as though frozen. That's what enables these giant explosions. So you just delete the pack, use Flicker onto the next one if there is enough density. That's the next thing. That's why breaches are really good. That's that. You can play without this. It feels way better with it though. And for your amulet, you really want just whatever you need. Prefixes are good for you can get energy shield and increased energy shield, pretty good. And suffixes, you can get an abundance of good things, attributes, resistance, crit stats, whatnot. Belt is just full on resistance. There's nothing really good on prefixes for us. They're all meh, kind of useful. That's it. All right. For the tree, we're going to do a quick version of it. This is at level 86. So if you're a lower level, you will have to drop some of these things. And at a higher level, there's not much more to go forward to, but there's some things you can still do to improve. Mainly the thing on here that is important to mention is you will want one of these Timeless Rubies with Rage on melee hit. These are very, very nice. Enables you to just get free rage on hit because there's free notables in here. These are essentially impossible to search for. I have just spam searched with browser search. It's very annoying. Let's hope they add it to search soon. Otherwise, you're just stuck like going recent listings and checking until one rage on hit pops up that is pretty cheap. That I got mine for 1 exile. That they're not very expensive, but if you have like additional small passive things that are very good, they can get expensive. Otherwise, it's mostly just enabling summon my enemies. That's the main thing we're doing. We're doing critical hits to ignore elemental resistance. That's also why it's very important that we use conversion on everything else but flicker strike, like ice strike, tempest spell, shockwaves, charge stuff. All of these things have conversion because we want the elemental resistance, because that resistance ignore is very, very strong, I'll tell you. We have the critical multiplier, that's one thing, but just ignoring is very amazing. That's the reason why we're just going a lot of crit. This is crit, this is crit, this is crit, and this is crit. That's all the crit we can get with like within reach that is easily attainable. There's one more class we can get, and we can anoint on here, which I will do soon. I don't have yet myself. Just go tainted strikes, really. Magnitude of non-damage ailment means your shock will be higher, and shock means you do more damage, and you have a 25% increased hit chance for attacks. Pretty good. Annoying. It's not very expensive. There's also a storm bout up here. Storm charge, sorry, but increased elemental damage is very nice. You essentially always have this. But you get increased damage from other sources as well, so it kind of falls off very much sooner than increased shock effect. So we have crit. One more thing we have is power charges. You have to kind of drop this in the earlier levels. You don't need it for the build to work. It just is pretty good. It increases your power charge limit, and that increases how far your charge stuff goes, and also enables you to flicker longer if you build up more charges before you do. Then you also have evasion energy shield here, evasion energy shield over here, and this is also evasion energy shield. All these are for your defensive layers, which are evasion and energy shield. That's a core archetype that has worked in PoE 1, it works in PoE 2, it's pretty damn strong, it's very good, and you kind of need the evasion because there's no OP recovery like in PoE 1, because you will stand in the middle of mob packs and you have to be able to survive that. You just need to do that, otherwise you die. Doesn't matter if you have 10k energy shield, if you're stunned or frozen in a pack of 20 mobs, you get hit, you get nothing, you're still dead. Doesn't matter the hit pool. You have to have evasion. That's why we're doing that. We're also doing just pure energy shield up here, for example. Intelligence, because that makes it easier for your intelligence stuff to, have the requirements here. For example, Grim Feast is pretty high, and higher Grim Feast means better recovery. We're pairing all that energy shield, currently at 5,000 myself, with CI. CI, very good because chaos damage ignore. And we're going to do also Eternal Youth. Life recharges instead of energy shield is absolutely pointless for us, but life recovery from Flask applies to energy shield instead. Is pretty good in PoE 2, I think, because we have a base recharge time of 4 seconds before your energy shield starts recharging. That means you have to go out of combat constantly for this to kind of work, and it would need a lot of investment in classes like these, fast start of energy shield, blah blah blah, and that doesn't feel good currently with the 4 seconds. So we're just going to go ignore all the recharge. That's why the downside here is also kind of ignored, slower start of recharge. And instead, we're going to use our life flasks to restore our energy shield instead. We have the Grim Feast, we have Ghost Dance. So that's not our only recovery, but it's a very good, like, oh shit button. You just press this, and especially combined with Utility Belt, the flask recovery applies, like this works, this interaction works, you just throw life flask and you have some energy shield instantly. So you could theoretically just spam all your flask charges to gain like half your energy shield or something. You could also do like percentage of charge amount recovered instantly, whatever you think it works best. I think increased amount recovered is very good, and just get the utility belt feels pretty good and really helps you out in those situation where you usually could do nothing with energy shield. Also grabbing this cluster here later on, Herald of Ash, Ice, increased cold damage, very good, and you also get the lightning damage with Herald of Thunder. Lightning damage isn't done that much, but works. So both 50% increases, very good, and this entire class is just mandatory for quarter staves. That's really much it. It's pretty straightforward. Base concept is pretty easy. I will have on the max roll guide like a progression, and we're going to talk about this on the more detailed guide. So speaking of more advanced, we're going to go over all the advanced stuff here now. Same scenario as before, skills, gear, then tree, just with more details, more explanation. So let's start with skills. So flickerstrike first. Flickerstrike does need some quality, as said before, 20% chance here, 35% chance here for a compound 55% chance. That feels pretty nice. It's not as reliable as just baseline doing permanent generation as in PoE 1, but it is the best we can do, so we will want that in here. Close combat, pretty self-explanatory, 21% more attack damage. That's just always true with Flicker, because you're just teleporting on an enemy that's within 1 meter. And momentum, not entirely sure if this works, and I don't know how I would even test this. The tooltip cannot possibly reflect that. I hope it works. I think it works. I'm not sure if it does. Maybe someone will test this and actually have a good explanation on why it does or does not work. And if it doesn't, I'll just have to throw it out here. We're not really using more links here because Flicker is more of an enabling skill, I think, because this has no conversion. And the conversion is what really makes all these other quarterstaff skills really, really good. And that synergizes with the Sunder My Enemies, because the critical hit elemental resistance ignore is like the core of the build that is very strong. And if we don't do elemental damage, we cannot harness the power of this. So I don't really see that much of a benefit of doing a lot of more damage scaling on Flicker. You can do something like Call Infusions here. You always have elemental damage. Just not sure if that actually is worth it, but maybe I'll reconsider, and you will see it updated here. Tempest Spell next. Tempest Spell bosses, very important. Quality is not needed. Quality would give you more bell hit destroy. We can just configure it here. So another 6 hits, so 25 hits. We don't need those 25 hits because we're using overabundance, skill effect duration, so it will expire from the duration before it expires from the hits. So absolutely no point in doing this. You have this one limit. That means you can throw 2 bells from one skill. Means you throw in your bell, you hit the boss, then you also hit Tempest Spell, so that does damage, and then you hit another bell, second bell next to the boss. You hit both bells and the boss at the same time, giga damage, and then you can just flicker between all 3. That is very good. If you can't get 2 on at the same time, it also doesn't matter, because you can continue hitting the boss to build up charges or combo for the next bell. So you will have bell up all the time, as if you didn't have this. You just have to throw your bell down and then build up the combo again. That's just not that good. This just enables you to have either both down or one up all the time. Heavy swing skills are physical damage. Since that's our base damage mostly, we'll be using that and then converting it with the shockwaves for more weapon elemental damage. Also Rage Forge for another 35% more damage, and that is going to be pretty good because we have a lot of rage generation, and if you don't have the rage, you will just not consume it. Otherwise, you get that 10% more damage for like a few seconds. Then you hit again, and you get the rage back. You get the 35% more damage as well. Very much worth it. And Rising Tempest for each elemental damage. If you've used your lightning things, I think Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice, and Ice Strike are the ones you have that would trigger this. So just usually you have at least one, so 12% more or 24% if both have triggered recently. Ice Strike, we're going to support with Martial Tempo, just to have more attack speed. That feels good on any skill, really. I'm going to do this on Ice Strike because Flicker is very fast baseline, I think. And you can also quality this to 20 to get even more, so 10% more, 35% more attack speed, so it feels really fast. And since this is a gap closing skill, that means you get like a mini teleport to the next enemy, so baby flicker essentially. It feels smooth because you constantly keep moving. You don't have to walk as much unless your map is just empty. There's no enemies here, but there's nothing you can do there. So really good here. Feels smooth in the gameplay, I think. So we're using this. Glaciation, because usually you will have Ice Strike generate your power charges because you freeze enemies with this. So this is just anything that gets hit, gets frozen. Very good. Practice combo, mana bounty, life bounty, they're not needed at all. If you would have just lesser on here for the practice combo, that's totally fine. Mana bounty, life bounty is just whatever. You don't really do much damage with this. It's not that important. You can just leave those out if you want. Charge Staff, on the other hand, very good. You actually want this on 20% quality. That increases, not sure if it's reflected here, but that increases the time your buff is up, as well as persistent. Those do the same thing essentially. Will amount at 7 charges at about like 1 minute 10 seconds, I think, is about the time you have this up for. So you don't have to refresh this often. Feels really good. We also do conduction, so a lot more chance to shock, and coursing current, that way around. You will have shock, 50% chance to also transfer that to additional enemies. Very good. You have some damage from the conversion on here. You can't see it in max roll, but it's oh, actually you can. Sorry, 80% physical damage, lightning damage from the shockwave. You can actually see the buff. So different tabs opened, and that means all the physical damage, or most of the physical damage, is converted. So that can shock, and you also can have some base lightning damage from your rings or staff or from your gloves. That enables you to run something I will explain later, but shock just per se is a very good thing to have on an enemy. I'm also adding Culling Strike here. Culling Strike is essentially the important part of this one, because Culling Strike, rare or unique enemy, is just free damage, because you will, on every melee hit, you will just throw out a shockwave anyway. So if a hit like puts an enemy below 5% for a unique boss, you will just throw in a charge staff shockwave after the hit, and it will immediately die. Just pretty good culling support on charge staff, I think. And if you cull something, Soul Rain, this also is good. If you have the last one for some reason, sounds good. Mana is always good. That is something that a lot of builds struggle with. Mana, I'm starting to struggle with it as well, and I don't have the 2% recovery on kill, so additional mana is always good. It's not going to be needed for this to work though. Herald of Ice is arguably the most important skill you have, because as you cannot deal elemental damage with Flicker, you can chill something and enable pulse circling. That will enable Herald of Ice, and that will enable screen pops. So that is essentially your main damage, really. And all of the damage is converted. The explosion isn't showcased here in the max roll one, but it's 100% cold conversion. So all of your damage is elemental, mainly cold. And all of that penetrates all of the elemental resistance if critting. So very, very strong. Using this with magnified effect, you can also quality this for more explosion radius. I haven't on my character used the quality yet. I don't have the gem cutters, and I don't think it's very important. Screen pop still happen without this, so might not be needed, but I guess it works either way. Magnified for the area. Shock Siphon, as explained before, there is going to be interaction. Since everything dies from Herald of Ice anyways, you can use Shock Siphon because we will proliferate shocks to enemies. You can kill them with Herald of Ice. That will trigger Shock Siphon and will recover 4% of your energy shield. Since we're full on energy shield, really good. Innervate, also same thing. Essentially, shocked enemy, when it's killed with this, grants 35% of damage as lightning damage. That happens quite often. It's not up all the time, but it's very, very good for something that only lasts for 3 seconds and is triggered like every so often. I'm also using Cold Infusion here. Not entirely sure if that is very good, as well as Cold Mastery. This is just more cold damage. That's it. Mostly deals cold damage anyways. So that's just really it here. These two are not necessary. I only have all these 3, I'm pretty sure. And still does way more than enough damage. It also depends on your base damage, on your weapon. But, well, that just is what you have on your character. And you can do these. Not necessary. First 3 ones are kind of necessary for the build to work the way it does. Comet Frenzy is pretty straightforward. Just go on and freeze something. You get a Frenzy charge. With quality, 20% here. Profusion, 50% here. So on average, 1.7 charges you get. Pretty good. Really much needed as a baseline for the entire build to even work. Grim Feast for recovery. Just get this as high as possible with your intelligence requirement. And precision on clarity here are just here because you have so much spirit, might as well spend it. Ghost Dance is pretty much just a recover layer as well. That is going to be fast forward supported because that reduces the time between the Ghost Shroud recoveries. That's just it. You gain part of your evasion as energy shield, good recovery layer, that's it. Wind Dancer actually helps with your evasion, so you gain more evasion. It's not displayed in max roll, but you gain, I think, like 18% more evasion. Not sure if that is level dependent, but you get more evasion per buff, and you will consume all these if you get hit by a melee attack only, not any projectile. So melee attacks only do this. And if you just evade them, you ignore it. If you do, you knock back enemies, and that's why we're supporting this with some things. We're using Pin, Lockdown, and Bludgeon for now. That will sometimes, because this doesn't deal a lot of damage, it will not always pin the enemies, but if it does, it just pins the enemies and throws them away. So in a perfect scenario where you deal enough damage, if you get hit by a melee attack, all the enemies are just pushed away from you, posing no more immediate danger because they're just locked down like a few meters away from you from the bludgeon. Herald of Thunder, pretty much just additional damage you want, and we're also using this to inflict some additional shocks because this is converted damage again. And magnitude of shock means higher shock value. So if you would normally inflict 20%, you would inflict, not sure if the math works out, but let's just say you would inflict 30% shock, so 10% additional more damage taken on an enemy. Very good. And we're using Lightning Infusion here, just for more lightning damage, so the shocks can trigger more often. and lightning skill mastery here, so the damage scaling increases. Maim is just something I threw in because, yeah, maimed enemies not bad if they're slow. You will face tank them anyways, so absolutely not needed. It's just something that triggers every so often. Might as well just throw in a maim for free. Unbound Avatar is one of the options on the tree, and there's not really anything left to support this. There's only 3 supports that do anything here. We need fast forward and persistence anyway. Ingenuity, I don't think it does really anything here. Anything useful, that is. And you can just use cold, lightning, and fire mastery. Pretty much not needed because it just increases the duration of your Unbound Avatar. And usually you need the Unbound Avatar for a boss kill. And if you kill it under 10 seconds, it's not relevant. And if it is going to take longer than 10 seconds, you will need more damage anyways. So you could throw off the cold and lightning mastery from the previous skills and throw all 3 on here as well. If you decide to take the Unbound Avatar, it's not a requirement. I'm going to talk about this in the tree section. We're going to talk about gear next. Let's start with the stuff. We have some stat priorities here. This is actually the edit scenario, but you can just see this when you view the build. This is just a stat priority. These are covering essentially everything on all of your slots that are important, on what you will want to prioritize. I'm going to go over all of these things anyways. For your staff, you want a very high physical damage staff. You achieve that by gaining first increased physical damage. So these are, by the way, perfect items. They're just configured with the highest tier, with the highest roll. So these are very much unrealistic to get. That is true for all the items. But increased physical and adds physical damage. So this is percentage increased, this is flat increased physical damage, and that can be further increased by having additional quality and by socketing iron runes. That is what makes physical so strong. You can't do that with elemental. That's only possible with physical. That's why you want that physical. Your third prefix, usually it's very hard to get a third prefix that even does anything useful. But if you can, you either want cold damage. You could get lightning or fire damage as well, but I like cold damage the best because cold damage increases your chance to just trigger any freeze or any chill that will both work for pulse circle and explosions and for power charge generation. So cold damage is what I would want to get here. You can also get the increased physical damage one, so that would make that even stronger to up to 707 physical max hit from 630. But it is not as strong because it's a hybrid and you don't really need the accuracy rating. So a cold one is actually better. So no hybrid, only physical plus cold. One thing that is also very strong is increased elemental damage attacks. It varies how much increased damage you already have because these are additive multipliers, not multiplicative multipliers. So if you already have a lot of increased damage, that is not so strong anymore. So either increased elemental damage or base cold damage is what is the best thing to get on prefixes. For suffixes, getting all 3 correctly is pretty unrealistic, but you will want a crit chance. The crit chance just enables you to have a higher crit, and higher crit, as said before, ignores elemental resistance. Very, very strong. The attack speed just feels really good, increases also your physical DPS, because per second increases your hits, and the critical damage bonus is something that is probably very overlooked, because this is not plus 39% in this case, additional multiplier, but this is a multiplier for your crit multiplier. It's very, very strong. So this is also the priority I would go. Critical hit chance first, just to have the base crit, and then have the critical damage bonus. And if you somehow manage to get this to the attack speed, you could theoretically also go plus melee skills. That is very good because it scales your damage, percentage attack damage, but it also increases your mana costs a lot. So that's not something I'm looking forward to do too much. You can go for this. This is very strong, but you might have a problem with mana. Sockets, obviously Iron Runes because it was scaling the physical damage. That's pretty straightforward. So a very high physical damage stuff is what you want. And if you can, also add some cold damage on there. For your helmet, you really want only energy shield. Energy shield, energy shield, energy shield, as high as humanly possible. You can get this with the increased and the base energy shield, and also with sockets. You could theoretically corrupt this and get 2 sockets here. Another iron rune in here, so over 500, but yeah, more is more, but get as much as you can. And that is all you want here, really. Suffixes for resistances, as always, on suffixes, and this is a very much luxurious suffix. You probably will not be able to get this unless you're pretty rich, but increased critical chance on a helmet is what would be the best in slot really here. Continuing with boots, this is essentially the same thing here. Suffixes is just resistances, prefixes is energy shield as much as possible, and 35% increased movement speed is max, but as much movement speed as you can get. Maps are very, very, very empty in PoE 2, and you can't just keep flickering on, dashing between enemies. You will have to walk, and if you walk at just the base movement speed, it's very, very annoying. Actually, you want socket in here, and again, supported by an iron rune for more energy shield. That's just it. That is a perfect scenario. Your gloves, on the other hand, are a bit flexible. These don't go as high in energy shield as your boots, even with maximum energy shield mods. So you can just do something like this. Just drop this and get only increased energy shield. Just get a 100 energy shield gloves. That's kind of what I have. And just get an prefix for lightning or like any added damage, because you're on your gloves. You can have these damage to attack mods. These are very good. That is an offensive stat that can be gained from any other of the 3 slots: helmet, gloves, boots. So if you can, that's very good here. Either 1 or 2 is kind of the goal. You can't really go for 3 because then you would have to sacrifice all the energy shield, and 60 energy shield is probably not good enough. You can do something like here, 132. If you have a socket in here, you can just go iron rune again, 150, and then just go 2. That works, but 3 is pretty much impossible to justify because you need the energy shield. You can probably make it work if you have enough energy shield on the other items, but I think it's probably better if you just don't do that. Suffixes, you can get critical damage bonus. Again, very strong. Attack speed, very strong, and resistance. Those 2 essentially is what you want if you can get it, and resistance. But just it's also fine if you just get all resistance if you need that. It's very hard to get very good items, especially if you don't have a lot of budget. That's fine. Just go for that. Your belt, very, very easy. Just all these 3 things: fire, cold, lightning resistance. There's nothing on belts you really need. You could get on suffixes, you could get charm slots. It's, well, not something that is currently feasible to get. These are very rare, especially with good resistance. And just making your resistance drain on the other items is better, in my opinion, currently. You don't need the chaos, you don't need the strength, and all of the other things are not very much good, I think. Prefixes are entirely useless. Armor does a little bit, I suppose. The recovery rate does also something, but they're not needed enough that I would say, yeah, just let's configure that. We just go all the resistances if you can, and you want a utility belt for the instant apply of your life flask charges. For your body armor, you will want the same thing as with the evasion ones, but with energy shield ones, you want evasion energy shield combo on this one. Just get all the evasion energy shield flat nodes and the increased nodes. So just pump this up as high as possible. I've seen armors like this on trade. This is very much possible, but these cost like currently 70 divines or something. So I have a 300 something energy shield and I think 800 evasion. That is very much enough to get all your auras in, because your spirit will depend on how much evasion energy shield you have in your on your body armor. But just get it as high as possible. At some point, you will have enough spirits to assign all your auras, and scale your defenses is just the end goal of a higher one. For your runes, iron runes on literally every single piece of gear. You don't need to look at any other runes. It's for weapons. It's for your gear. It's only iron runes. Suffixes, again, only resistances you can get: dexterity and intelligence. Here, theoretically, it's not a wasted stat. You will need a lot of attributes to scale your skills to max level, so always something that is welcome. For your rings, you will want the easy choice first, pulse circling. That just enables your screen-wide pops. It has some cold damage, it has some strength. You will probably not need strength, but you can maybe get away with just getting no strength on your tree at all, and instead just getting the strength here, and that will be enough to add your supports maybe, or it will at least lighten the load on your strength on your tree. So that is something very useful here. But the only thing you really need is the last hit. That's unmodifiable. Just get ball circling for that. These are not that expensive. They're not really cheap. They're like 20 exalted at time of recording this video. So something that is very much manageable. The other ring is going to be just for resistance on the suffixes. And if you can, just throw in as much hit damage as possible. This is like the perfect scenario on prefixes. Suffixes, again, dexterity, you can also do all attributes. You can do intelligence. There's a lot of resistance here as well. You can get all res on a ring. There's a lot of useful things here on the ring. The ones mentioned are the best. You can also get things like mana per enemy killed. This is useful. Mana region rate is useful, but these are the ones that really matter here. For your amulet, really, this is a perfect example here. You can do entirely without this. You can theoretically just get something like egg. The egg is something a lot of people like because you will get additional charge when you gain a charge, so that is strong. I don't feel this is needed. It will maybe make it a slight bit smoother, but with all the explosions we have, we don't really need it that much. So since this is a very expensive item, this is like worth my entire build currently. I don't think it's worth getting this. Maybe at some point, but yeah, no. We're just going to go energy shield. Check up energy shield as high as possible. On the prefixes, there's one flat, there's one increased. And you can also get rarity and prefixes, rarity and suffixes. So if you get something like even combined 40% rarity, that is very good. That enables your drops to be better. It's very much not needed, especially for the builder function, but that's something rarity you can squeeze in. And increased crit chance and crit damage bonus are very, very good on your suffixes. Don't expect to get those, especially if you need to fix your resistance, because it's probably going to be hard, especially on a budget, to get your resistance from all the items except your amulet. But if you can manage it, you can aim for something that has critical hit chance and critical damage bonus, if that's within your budget. And for our last step, we are going to go over tree, and tree is going to be, or it is here configured like the path you're going to take. So we're going to go together through all of these, and just I'm going to explain why we're taking the ones we take. I'm going to go from one notable to the next. So first, we're just going to get out of the gate, just get over here. All of these things are just kind of useful, nothing changing, skill speed and critical damage bonus. In the beginning, you could theoretically get attack damage because this is better in the early game. It might or it will help you more to get this in the beginning than that, but in the end, it's probably better to get the critical damage bonus. Here, Crashing Wave, this is also very good in the beginning because past 8 seconds, increased damage for that is very likely to happen. Because quarterstaffs just all come with 10% base crit chance, so that triggers a lot. Very good in the beginning and also good the entire game. We're also taking Moment of Truth here for more damage if we've dealt a non-crit. That is going to be pretty much useless later on if we're going to get closer to crit cap. It will trigger occasionally, but the increased critical chance is what we really want here. This is actually... Yeah, no, it's configured right. You want to hit chance. You don't care that much about the crit damage bonus. If you have a 1 point to waste, you could get it, but you probably won't have a point to waste. And speaking of crit, we're just going to go over to crit. One notable, second notable, third notable. We want the critical hit chance first, then we get some critical damage bonus, and we get another critical hit chance and increased damage if we've dealt a crit in the past 8 seconds. So just full on crit here. Next, we're going to go over here. There's already a jewel configured. These just have configured things that are useful. You can take these jewels as an example, but there's nothing here that enables or disables the build. It's all just something that is strong. We're going to go on our pathing. This is what makes the early game kind of wonky because you have a lot of attributes and not a lot of things on the tree, but you really want to rush over here, get martial artistry, critical damage bonus, and accuracy rating. And what you really need here is the one with the storm that counts as an additional power charge that enables you to just make your charge stuff last longer. It enables you to flicker better in the late game. Just all around a very good notable. And we're getting these again on the other side because there's an additional freeze buildup. And increased defenses, very strong because both evasion and energy shield are defenses. Just a very good notable. And here, rolling assault on the way there. Knockback on crit feels a bit strange sometimes because it will push enemies out of the bell, but we can't really not get this. I would actually not get this if I had the option because the attack speed is good, very good actually, but the knockback feels kind of strange and wonky sometimes. I hope they change that at some point, but yeah, it is what it is. Next, we're going to go jewel socket down here and pathing over to hard stopping into struck through. That is another crit cluster. That is arguably one of the stronger crit clusters because this gives critical hit chance base. So you could get up to 16.5 crit on Gothic with a perfect roll plus this, so 17.5% crit chance, and then increase that 17.5. That is very strong. You also get here some critical damage bonus and strength as well. Strength, very good for the few supports you have in the red color, which requires strength. Very good note. We're going to go next, scale our energy shield and evasion, because at this point, you're going to have some gear that is with energy shield, and that is actually decent energy shield, and it's just random level 10 base energy shield. They do nothing. Neither did they don't do anything in PoE 2. They don't do anything in PoE 1. These are just better. The later the game goes, the higher your items and your item levels are. that is where we're starting to scale that. We're also going to go down here and grab this one. So more evasion energy shield again. And then we're going to take the power charges. Power charges again here. These are easy to get because that's just right on your path. The other ones come later. And then we're going to go CI. At this point is where you could probably go CI. This depends on what your gear actually looks like. So don't go CI if you're under 2.5 energy shield, 2.5 thousand, that is. If you have like 1000 energy shield, it's not worth actually pressing CI. If you're at this point and your gear is not good enough, just do this later and just don't have any chaos resistance, and everything is just going to bypass energy shield onto your life. That's just what it is going to be until you get better gear. Just this is usually the point where you could have enough gear, so that is where it is. And in here, once you get CI, you also want Eternal Youth, because you will make your life flasks useful this way, and you don't have to bother about recharge at all. Then we're going to go next. Patient Barrier. So that means we're going to path up here. This is very strong as soon as you get CI. And especially with Eternal Youth combined, you don't have a downside here. This is 60% increased maximum energy shield. I think that is the highest energy shield notable on the tree. So 60%, very, very strong. Take this, and then also take 25%, not percent, 25 intelligence, because that just makes your suffixes easier to get, and you don't have to get as much intelligence on the tree and whatnot as you would have otherwise. Next, we're going to go Resonance, because at this point you will be flickering, or you will want to be flickering. If you are at a level and at the equipment where you would want to flicker before, you can grab this before, but Resonance is needed for the second line here. Gain frenzy charges instead of, the first line, power charges instead of frenzy charges, because you will not be able to spend your frenzy charges. You will have to spend it power charges. That means this is just needed for the Comet Frenzy to work. This is just Jewel Socket, and we're going to go over here. The Jewel Socket is going to enable, as I said before, the Rage mechanic, and this is also just increased attack speed. I think actually is skill speed in game. Doesn't matter either way. Reduced cost of skill is neat, but you really want this for the plus Rage, and because it's very, very close to where you are anyways, the 8% increased attack speed feel pretty nice. As mentioned before, we're going to take the power charges at some point. It's not needed for a build, but it feels good because the 5% chance to gain max power charges is kind of good. It happens sometimes, and if it happens at the right time in a huge mob pack, it just feels amazing to just flicker on for like 30 seconds if you're lucky. Pretty cool. And the increased energy shield to path there is pretty cool. It's not happening all the time, but sometimes you just have increased energy shield. It saved my life like once, I think, so it's not useless, but yeah, it's not up that often. When we're going down here, we're also going to take Subterfuge Mask, that is like the counterpart to this here, Spectral Ward. So you gain energy shield per evasion on body armor, and here it's the other way around, you gain evasion rating per energy shield. Since we have a pure energy shield helmet, this is going to be very strong. A lot of evasion rating here, base evasion rating, that is going to be scaled with the percentage nodes as well here. And then the other way around for the power charge as well. So we're now with all three notables here, we're at a maximum of 7 power charges in total. And the power charge duration on these is just kind of nice because it enables you to just keep the power charges idle for longer. If, for example, you run around because there's no mobs and your power charges are going to run out, they're going to run out later. and you can use them to increase your charge stuff later on, or like refreshing. Essence of the Mountain here as well, because extra damage is cold. It's not a extremely overwhelming thing, but extra damage is cold damage is going to be pretty good. It's just additional insurance essentially that you chill more, and with chills you can just use the pole circle and pops. Very good. Just a good note. It's probably not necessary if you have base cold damage somewhere in your gear, but this is just additional chance to get everything popping. Careful assassin as well. You can get this before, but I just put it in here. Increased critical chance with a downside of a reduced bonus, but really want additional crit chance because you don't just use it for a bonus, you also use it for sunder enemies. Next, we're going to go Inner Faith. That's up here. Evasion rating energy shield. It's like right next to it. It's just 3 points here, and you get some stuff. Reduce the effect of curses is pretty neat, but not the world. Mostly be getting it for the evasion energy shield. Next, this is going to be a bit costly for pathing. I really don't like that you need to path that much. I might change this section. That's why it's at the very end. But it's going to be another crit cluster and followed by another energy shield cluster. This is kind of up for debate. I'm not really here yet myself, so not sure. But yeah, more crit, more good. And for the last few points, we're going to use Echoing Frost and Echoing Thunder. If you've shocked or if you've chilled an enemy recently, which we do a lot, we gain compound 60% increased elemental damage, and since we're dealing mostly elemental damage, this is going to be very strong. You can also get Echoing Flames. Currently, I don't have a skill point configured, and this will be at level 100. So, not sure where to get this from, what I would drop from, but if you have fire damage on your gear, you can't just have this condition up also, so you get a compound 90% chance. That's really it for your passive tree. That's what you will want to get. And for some reason, I forgot to do this in the beginning, and we're going to go over when you want to send what. We're going to go first sunder my enemies. As said, this is the core of the build. And then we're going to go Iron Blizzard. You gain 10% extra damage as extra cold damage. It is kind of tame for an Ascendancy. Honestly, I wish this was higher. It's really not that strong. But freezing enemies creates chill ground is a nice thing. You will usually just have a pop anyways because of the pole circling, but if you were to kill something that is in the range of this chill ground, you will have the condition for the pole circling up, and it's just extra damage. You can also just, if you have base cold damage, but you have to have base cold damage on your staff, for example, or enough on your gear to actually make things pop, you can skip this as your second Ascendancy and just do what you would normally do for the third Ascendancy, which is Lead Me Through Grace. That is just Spirit because you use the Energy Shield Evasion body armor, and that enables you to get an additional Spirit aura in, or 2 actually if you get a proper ring. And for the last one, you really don't need it, but it's just initial damage, and I shall rage for Unbound Avatar. That is 40% increased for like 10 seconds, 40% more, sorry, not increase, more elemental damage while unbound, and you get more elemental ailment buildup, so faster freezing as well. By the way, I think I forgot to mention before, but since we just talked about it, Unset Ring is here for the additional last Spirit Aura. So you can have Herald of Thunder, or if you fancy it, you can also get a Blink in there. All right, let's just go over the last few things, which is just different versions of this build that I've tried and just kind of dismissed as not being as good as this one. First, we're just going to talk about physical thing. There's really no way to scale something up as high as physical stuff. The only thing you could get is and let me just go expert crackling. Where is it? Crackling quarterstaff, and you will want to move this, because this actually doesn't scale with elemental damage. You will with the physical damage. This doesn't affect it, which is a bummer. Also, the quality doesn't affect it. As you can see, it's just a wasted layer. It's a good layer, the quality for physical stuffs, and it's just unaffected by this. It's a bummer, really. So what you could get here is lightning damage, and then you could get also some more cold damage, and now you're at 600 elemental DPS. You could, and that's kind of perfect scenario, which is okay. And then you can get increased elemental damage with attacks. That is very, 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 very hard to get at this level. It's way easier to get a physical damage stuff, and you can also get Gothic quarterstaff, which has higher base crit chance. So mostly this is just better. This would, on the other hand, enable you to go and just use flicker with the notable, with the ascendancy, sunner my enemies. So that's the only upside you have here. Not really an option. These are very hard to get. It's just easier to go with physical, but then you have to solve something, which is how do you deal elemental damage to harness elemental resistance ignore. That's how I landed on Herald of Ice, and Herald of Ice is just very, very good with Pol Circling. You can't play it without, as mentioned before. It's just very, very, very fun, very, very good this way. What you can also do is, if you, for example, have a crackling quarterstaff, you can just also do call. I think Call of the Brotherhood, not Whisper. Yep, Call is the one that converts all of your lightning damage to cold damage. That is just, yeah, enables you to freeze things, enables you to pop things, and freezing enemies is just a good defensive layer. That is what I've been playing with before, but it's not really that good. As for Frenzy Charge generation, since we're at freezing and lightning damage, or lightning and cold damage will make your enemies shatter if you Herald of Ice, right? So there's kind of a contradiction with the next tech, which is Triggers, Kill, and Profane Ritual, it's called now. This was revealed as a different name skill, but it's just you get a power. Where is it actually? Where does it say it? In the red, yellow text in the beginning, you gain a power charge, and that power charge you gain after some duration, which is 2-second ritual duration, and then the power charge will just fly to your character. You get that, and the only way to reliably use this is a trigger skill, like cast on crit was the additional idea, cast on crit profane ritual, but we can't do that because cast on crit was just fucking nerfed into the ground. Really hoping here that we get this back to at some point, so we can actually make it work this way as well. That would be really cool. We don't have to rely on combat frenzy. We can also free up 2 skill points for resonance, or actually 1. One, depending on how you path. It wouldn't free something up, but it would change something to crit. But yeah, you get the rift. You don't need resonance. You don't need combat frenzy. It frees up 1 skill slot, which you can use for something else if you have very high spirit. So you could use all of that plus a blink plus something else you fancy. It would be very good if you can get that, but currently just not feasible. Cast on crit is just they're all kind of dead, at least for mapping, which is where we need to do the Profane Ritual. There's another thing, which is Reaper's Invocation, and this works reliably well. The problem with this is it isn't triggered. So the only way you can make this work is if you have a macro running or if you spam a key. And I don't think I ever want to make a build that is requiring you to either spam or do something against TOS. So currently, trigger skills are dead, in my opinion. You can make this work if you would just spam the key. I've done this, and it's so annoying having to constantly spam the key this is assigned to, because this goes up to like, I don't know, 5 users or something. So you can save up users, so 5 rituals are triggered at once, but what you want is this permanently triggering as a cast on crit would, right? Cast on crit, you just crit everything, and then you just gain energy. When you gain the energy, the thing is cast, and that's it. And at the end of your flicker, these things just fly to you from the profane ritual, and then you gain power charges, because it actually is only disabled that you gain power charges, not that the power charges fly to you, but when they enter your character, you gain them. And if you are currently not flickering, this line doesn't apply. So you cannot gain power charges while standing still on the right side here. That doesn't apply. So this works, but it's very, very janky, and it requires you to abuse the game, as cast and crit doesn't work, and you have to do Reaper's Invocation. And either you macro it or you spam it. Just, yeah. Mechanically it works, but no, we're not doing that. And the last power charge generation tech we have is actually swapping out the body armor, which is something we really cannot do at this point, because you will lose all your defenses, and you cannot use spirit. So it's a really, really, really big downgrade. This is way too strong, but you can use, and I've done a build with this. This works fine, but you're like very squishy, because you lose all the energy shield and all the evasion is gone. But chance to gain a power charge and crit hit, this triggers all the time. You can flicker a lot, but the problem is, at some point, your flickering stops, you're in a mob pack, and you're just instantly dead because you don't have armor and you have no evasion. So it's very fun until the point you die, and at least in maps, it's just not feasible to use this. At least I didn't like this. Maybe if you blink out, if you have that reaction time when you stop flickering, but I think it's not a very good build as of right now. There's some copium here, because the chance to gain power charge on critical hit is something we've had before in PoE 1. Specifically on timeless jewels, we have time lost rubies, and we actually also have, let me just change this here, edit jewel, right? So, yeah, right here. We also have Heroic Tragedy, which is a timeless jewel, and I'm hoping we get the timeless jewels from PoE 1, because there is a timeless jewel that would very much solve things, which is, let me just go to PoE 2DB, going to giving us one specific thing, which is Eternal, I think, Eternal Subjugation? Yeah, I got it right the first time. Cool. Anyways, Eternal Subjugation does the same thing, and you gain a power charge and critical hit. You could, if you can somehow ever get this in PoE 2, this is definitely what I will be going for, because passive charge generation is just the best thing. The other thing, as mentioned before, would be fixing cast on crit to work again. But yeah, currently it's something like this would be best, like walls, but weaker. And this, if you don't know timeless jewels, this works this way, just the same as this one. It has a radius, and the specific one that gives eternal subjugation, because this is very strong, right? It will change how these notables interact. So as you can see, this is Heroic Tragedy, and that changed to Runic Tattoos, increased ailment threshold, mana regen. This is Flask Effect Duration. So these were crit nodes, and we didn't really want that, right? But here on, probably not here because that has CI. Maybe down here with Eternal Youth, we could go and edit the jewel, go to Heroic Tragedy, and I actually assign it, please. Second. Actually assign it. This will probably be in here, and we can't use Eternal Youth anymore, but it would assign something here, and then we could get one specific version, because these are very different. 8,000 Songworthy Deeds here, that is a number that can be very different, and depending on the number, different things will be assigned here on the notables, and we will want one that is very close to us. For example, here you get 3 points, and then you go get and have Eternal Subjugation here. And the downside of having this is that these no longer give anything. Like the small notable passive give absolutely nothing. Not something worse, it just gives nothing. That will enable us to get nothing on these pathing nodes, on these pathing nodes here. And you just simply get this for the power charge and crit. That is a very big investment for this upside you would get. So big downside for a big upside, just a classic PoE way of trading things. But you would get your entire body armor back. You can just still go get Lead Me Through Grace. That also works. And you have passive power charge generation. That will also make Scatter Them into the Winds good again, because Scatter Them if the Winds doesn't do a lot of damage because it's a spell and that doesn't scale. But what it does a whole lot of projectiles and a whole lot of crits because it just hits a lot. You can get a lot of these bolts out, and you can make them chain like up to, if my math is correct, chain them 16 times. So that's something that would be very much generating a lot of power charges. That is just something that I'm thinking of if we ever get this, but that is something I would really like. Passive charge generation again, as in how we get it in PoE 1, or we get a Profane Ritual fix with Cast on Crit, because I don't feel comfortable abusing Reaper's Invocation the way you have to abuse it currently, and just go and actually use Cast on Crit the way it was meant to be. I think that's what I would think it should do. It should work on not just bosses, but everywhere, or like more often. It works, but it's just not enough to upkeep your power charges. So Cast on Crit, go into Skill Gems, go into Profane Ritual, and go. That's just very good. I've used this before the nerfs, and it worked kinda, even on a low level character, but yeah. Maybe we get a buff sometimes. Opium here. All right, that's all the rambling I have on the different versions I've tried that were sadly not as good. And since we had the Combat Frenzy buffs, this is just kind of the status quo. That's just the thing that works best currently. And that's what we're doing right now. All right. That's all I have for this video. So thank you all for watching, and hope to see you in the next one. Cheers and goodbye.